Welcome to SmartGuy, where we sit down with extraordinary people who are thriving through faith in challenging times. Tommy, do us a favor, share us your story, who you are, what you do, and how your journey has got you here.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be here. I am a lifelong Christian, lifelong Catholic. I have had many different health challenges throughout my life, but in one way or another, I've tried to have the Lord just help me through it because without Him, I couldn't do anything.
Let's talk about that. What role does faith play in your life, especially with things feel uncertain or things can be, I'm sure, overwhelming?
Well, sometimes, like, I think to myself, the my health is just such a large impact in my life that sometimes I think, okay, God, where are you? What's going on? But then as soon as I release everything to the Lord, somehow everything gets better. And that's because of knowing that God has healed people throughout history. I know that He'll heal me as well.
Let's talk about that because people don't know. If you don't mind, tell them what your condition is, what the hardest season you faced with it, and how your faith has helped you along the process.
Okay. Well, I have several main health conditions. The largest one is called Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and it affects your bones, your ligaments, connective tissues, the arteries, organs, everything. I have the vascular, the hypermobile, and the classical subtypes. And it's like sometimes like I have chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and I was also in a wheelchair for 3 years because I had a septic blood infection and different things going on with that. And it has been rough, I'll be the first to admit. And sometimes I feel alone. And but when I feel alone and in the darkest moments, and even in the lightest moments, sometimes I think, okay, if I just unite my sufferings with Christ, and that's easier said than done. Um,
Let's talk about that. What keeps you grounded? How do you stay focused with the pain and the doctor visits on what matters?
well, it's very overwhelming. And like I grew up with my mom and dad always would say, give it to God. Ask God to help you. And so, like, I would talk to my mom and I would talk to different other friends, but at the end of the day, I know that somehow, it's going to be okay because God's there. I always live by the mentality of if you look at the word Christian, you have Christ, then IAN, take Christ out of Christian, live with I am nothing. So I know that ever since I was really young that I'm nothing without God. So it's just it is hard sometimes to give it to him because I just want to, I guess you could say, wallow in the pain. But then again, though, when you give it to God, you think, wow, everything just all of a sudden falls into place. Everything seems to work out. And it's because he just, as a bishop used to say, God is like a southern gentleman. He waits to be called upon. So when you call upon God, you know that he'll always be there for you and he'll help you.
So, what habits or routines help you stay positive, stay disciplined, stay like you always are, motivated?
That that that's a tough question. Because sometimes I think, okay, I don't know what to do, and I get depressed. But when I start talking to friends, when I start talking to my mom or different family members, when I just all of a sudden I just pray and I say, okay, Lord, I'm clinging on for dear life and I need your help. And those are the three biggest things that like help me through things, but also like through therapy and through just even listening to music. Music helps as well. Music is healing for the soul, especially good music. But also I find a lot of peace in nature, so like hiking as well.
So, as you know, and this is as you and I have talked many, many times, there's a lot of people that deal with either illnesses or depression or anxiety, etc. Um, what do you do to handle fear or doubt or when you're going to the doctors? I know you go to doctors all the time. Often you get setbacks. How do you deal with all of that?
Sometimes I have a very hard time dealing with it. I pray about it every time before and after a doctor's appointment. I always pray. But second of all, I I sometimes like if I get, let's just say, a new diagnosis or whatever, I try not to let it really get to me. Yeah, that's easier said than done because we're all human. And sometimes when you get hard news from the doctor, you think, oh, another thing, because I have so many different medical problems. But the thing is, when you pray, when you give it to God, when you start reading like different philosophers' input on different things, or even you just out in nature, things just start feeling more peaceful, in my opinion. Um, Sometimes I do have difficulty doing that as well because, like I said, we're all human, so I fall into depression. But when I get with people, I know, okay, it's gonna be okay. Just give it to God. Also, surround yourself with people who love you and care for you, and do something that you enjoy. Do something that brings you peace. And when you do that, then the other things like the bad news from the doctor or even good news from the doctor, that somehow eases into your daily routine and things start being more smooth. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but you're more than just peaceful. You seem to thrive. That's what I noticed about you. So, how would you say your definition of thriving differs from you and anybody else? Because you seem to always have such a love of life.
I thank you, first of all, for that. I have a hard time really thinking that about myself sometimes, because you hear people all the time saying, like I do at least, oh, you're an inspiration, or oh, you have this going on, but you still go through life just wonderfully. And I think I'm just being me. So I've always just, I guess it's just like a gift from God that I've always just had the peacefulness and the thriving through life because sometimes, I do struggle with it too at times because I'm like, I feel just, I don't know, it's just that life is hard. Everybody knows life is hard. But I guess it also boils down to that I've always just had a strong love for God. And I've also had a strong love for other people. Um, Rachel Scott, she was the first girl that was killed in Columbine. Her middle name was Joy. And when after she died, they found on the back of her dresser that she wrote out the acronym of her middle name was Joy, and she wrote out Jesus, others, and yourself. And ever since I learned about that in high school, I've always tried to live by that mentality. Put Jesus first, put others above you, and then put yourself last.
So, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck or discouraged or behind? Um, for those of you that don't know, Tommy's condition is very serious, and quite frankly, you could go at any time.
Hmm.
Maybe if you could talk a little about that, and then again, what advice would you give someone who feels discouraged? Because I think after listening to your story and they can see how you're always positive, etc., it might help them understand that things are not so bad in their life.
Yeah. Well, I just to give you a brief rundown of my health history. I was a preemie baby. I was 2 months early. I've my lung collapsed in eighth grade. My father committed suicide when I was 17, and my mom and I found him. I've also had two mini strokes, TIAs. I've had like multiple dislocations of my knees. I've had hip surgery, lung surgery, all kinds of different surgeries. And through all that, like I've had a strong support system, number one. Number two, I've always remained my faith in a strong aspect. Um, Granted, there have been some times where I think, okay, Lord God, where are you? But then I realized there's a story called The Footprints in the Sand, where during it, Jesus said, I was carrying you through this. I'm
Sometime,
carrying you.
right?
And when I hear Jesus saying that he's carrying me, that gives me so much peace. And that gets me through life. That gets me through the difficult moments because I know that he's never going to abandon me. And the peacefulness comes from that as well. Because when he carries you through this, when he is, I mean, even behind me, I have the crucifix behind me. It's the greatest love story ever told. you know, he loves us so much that he died to forgive us of our sins, to get us into heaven. And that brings me excitement and joy because I know that he is going to carry me through all the hell that I've been through. And yes, I'll be the first to admit it has been hell. Um, but it also brings you peace because when you unite your sufferings with his,
So if you could leave
sometimes
our
it's better.
audience with one message of hope or encouragement, because you'd be a good one to answer that, what would it be?
What gives you hope or encouragement?
Yeah, well, for everybody listening,
That's a,
I mean, obviously, faith in God gives you hope and
right.
encouragement, and your family. I know your mom very well.
Uh-huh.
She's amazing,
I'm truly blessed to have her. I really am.
but you're
And
pretty much
also, like,
alone out here.
I have a great support system. I have, you know, I have a great pair, good shepherd. I have my pastor. I have several priests that I know. But what gives me hope the most is that despite everything, I know that eventually that, you know, if you give your give of yourself to people and you give of your time and you give of your talents, that even though you go through so much, life is so difficult. If you try not to focus on the negative and you try to focus more on running your life around your conditions versus having your conditions run you, then you kind of have more positive in life. You get more out of life. You have more joy. And then, but the hope comes in that one day, if you're such a good person, that you will end up living with God in eternity.
So, like I said, I know Tommy very well. We go to the same church, also.
Mhm.
Um, but Tommy loves to help people, like everything we believe in SmartGuy. That's why we built SmartGuy, right?
Mhm.
That being said, Tommy, if they wanted to reach out to you, whether it's to speak at their event, because it's an extraordinary story, and we try and keep these episodes very short. Um, is there an email they can reach you? I think the email would be the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It is Tommy Natcher at Comcast.net. So that's TOMMYNATCHER at Comcast, COMCAST.net. And my main message is in good or difficult moments in life, don't give up hope. Rely on God. Don't give up hope. Rely that you know that things are somehow going to turn out to be okay, despite seeing all the darkness and you might not see the light, but hopefully someday you will.
All right. Again, thank you, Tommy. I think that that's great. Those of you that feel like you're struggling and you want to feel um, grounded and balanced, um, gratitude. It's all about gratitude. And when you listen to this video, and feel free to share it with other people, it really gives you a sense of wonder of the amount of grace he has, especially in Tommy, for Tommy to have this great spirit and want to help out. So reach out to him. All right, Tommy. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you, and I hope to talk with your audience again soon.